The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk. I'm Rick Sense along with co-host Terry Pinch. Terry, how you doing this week?
I am doing fantastic. Snow's almost gone. There's a little bit outside my window, but of course I know it'll come back in mid-April, but at least until then I'll be fine.
Or May. Yeah. So we were fortunate for our show this morning to have a gentleman by the name of Josh Ostermann who works for Discover Mediaworks. I've had the opportunity to work with Josh in the past, and Josh has a very interesting career, and instead of me babbling on about it, I think I'll just go right to Josh and just ask you, Josh, what do you exactly do at Discover Mediaworks?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about it. So Discover Mediaworks is the name brand. It's the parent company of, we always call it a family of brands. So Discover Mediaworks is our custom video marketing campaign, but everybody knows us for Discover Wisconsin. So that show started in 1987, and the idea was actually formed prior to that with the founder, Dick Rose. He was a fishing guide in the Northwoods, and he shared a boat with Governor Tommy Thompson, and one thing led to another. Discover Wisconsin was born, and it was a great public-private partnership, and then from there, it's now become the nation's longest-running tourism program, and we would tell people like, oh, you could see us on broadcast, but now as everything has evolved, it's broadcast, it's streaming, it's social, and we have our podcast called The Cabin, and it's really grown into what we would call our show pony of Discover MediaWorks. But we've had the good fortune of working with Calumet County and you, Rick, on Discover Wisconsin on that series, but then Uniquely Wisconsin, which is another one of our brands that we came up with over the last 5 years, and that's really dedicated to like the culture and the passion of the of communities and municipalities and counties across the state, which is a little bit different than our tourism program at Discover Wisconsin. And then two kind of unknown brands, people don't think of us when you say Into the Outdoors, which is an educational programming, it's STEM-based curriculum show that's hosted by kids for kids that we put on our broadcast and streaming platforms as well. And then a great one, which is always fun to watch. It's more of a streaming show of Boondock Nation. It's professional snowmobiling adventures where they're traveling globally, and I say globally because we've gone to Canada and we've been all over the United States. So I guess you can count that as global. But they will ride off trail in designated areas and really showcase that adventure-seeking, high-octane sport. So all of that said, we're just a strategic communications and media production company, and housed in both Eagle River and in Madison, and we've been doing it now since 1987, and we're happy to showcase Wisconsin to the world.
So the mission of the organization, obviously you could come up with a pretty easy one from the outside looking in. Hey, they're there to promote Wisconsin, but right. What do you guys? What do you look at? Is it as simple as that in your world that we're promoting Wisconsin, or obviously with the other brands you have other things going on as well?
The other brands we do touch on, Boondock Nation and Into the Outdoors, are both will travel all over the United States and like I had mentioned into Canada for it. But Uniquely Wisconsin and Discover Wisconsin are two brands that really celebrate all that there is in Wisconsin to do. And, we were both just at the governor's conference on tourism and see the impact that the industry can have all over the state. And you meet everybody from all over the state. We might be, having conversations with somebody at the Ashland Chamber that, is standing right next to somebody from Visit Milwaukee. And, each is talking about how do they draw people to their area. And, it's really it's really neat to see. There's so many iconic places in Wisconsin, and we have such a diverse landscape and businesses and adventures that you really can't get bored traveling around Wisconsin and exploring what it has to offer. And I think for us, we want to focus really in on the Wisconsin side and really focus on the tourism aspect. But then with our uniquely Wisconsin brand, we've really started to grow in the last, I'd say, 5 to 6 years, and we saw the industry change as well, where tourism and economic development are now becoming very intermingled, and you can't really tell a story about, businesses or places to go without telling a story about the people behind those. And those are wonderful culture and economic development passion stories, and it really sets up Wisconsin for that next wave of the future. And it's really fun to see. So we'll work with some regional companies. That's, like when we're talking about all the things to explore in Wisconsin, and, we might do something on O&H Bakery talking about their Kringles that go out. And we've had a long-standing relationship with, some gems like Marshfield Clinic and Jolly Good. And, we did a project with Quick Trip where it was a documentary on Quick Trip. So it's gone from basically just tourism to, Wisconsin-centric businesses that make an impact, both on tourism but economic development side. So it's been a really fun transition into what that future is going to look like.
And I want to come back to the business side of things here in a little bit here, Josh, but I just want to spend a moment, let listeners know, could you share your background? What brought you to Discover Mediaworks and what do you do for the organization at this point in time? And hey, do you like what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, so I grew up in the northern part of the state. I'm a Hodag originally, and I went to school in what I would consider, and I don't want to make anybody upset in the Green Bay or Oshkosh area that's going to be listening in, but what I consider the finest four-year institution in the state at UW-Eau Claire, proud blue gold. And when I went, I thought I was going to be getting into sciences. So I got a chemistry degree with a business background, thinking, I could go be a pharmacist. Well, I went from there to not going on to pharmacy school, and then working for a water treatment company out of the Minneapolis area. And once I realized I didn't want to be in that industry, I found myself, and it's a long process on how I got there, but I was working in college athletics on the sponsorship side for nearly 15 years out at the University of Idaho, the University of Wyoming, and then back with Badger Sports Properties at the University of Wisconsin. And then from there, COVID hit, and we were just all waiting for, what the next season was going to look like. And, I was ready for a change at that point. And I left before NIL and all the challenges that we see now with the transfer. I left before all that because the opportunity came when I met Mark Rose, who's the owner of Discover Wisconsin. And we just had a great conversation and formed a great relationship, and the opportunity was there for me to make a move over to Discover Wisconsin and Discover Mediaworks. And from there, it's been fun. So if you think about it, I graduated with a chemistry degree, and I worked in college athletics, and now I am in the hospitality and tourism industry, highlighting all great things about Wisconsin, from, greatest pizza in the state to, the best fall hikes.
So what in your background, especially in your early career path, has really been a skill that you've been able to pull forward into what you do now? Go back to your days in the sports marketing. Mm-hmm. What have you brought forward to your current role?
Well, I'll look at, if I'm working with either a destination or a business, it's important to put yourself in the decision maker's shoes, and where's this budget coming from? What's the impact that it's supposed to have on the company when they're deciding to partner with you in doing any projects? And it's being very diligent and respectful of their budget, their wants, and then what our goals are. So for Discover Wisconsin, for instance, we don't work with every company out there because we put value in our brand. It's nearly 40 years old, and people look at us like they they want to know where the next adventure is. And if we are not telling a truthful story or a passionate story and have excitement behind it, then, we don't want to lead our audience astray. And at the same time, we want to showcase the clients in the best light possible. So for us, it's the building the relationship, and that if we're talking business, like that line of building a relationship is often overused, but it's truly what it is. I mean, we're not the type of business that goes out and works with everybody. We want to be comfortable with the people that we're working with, and we want them to be comfortable with us. And it just forms a nice relationship that we can understand and have direct conversations about what the next wave, next project or next goal is going to be, and then we can try to help everybody get there. But realistically, it's just looking at what their needs are and where that's coming from and being efficient with other people's budgets and goals.
Your organization has had a lot of success and continued its success over the years. And you just a really strong reputation. I know everybody that I know, when you hear Discover Wisconsin, it's always a positive response about great show. We love it. So what has led to that, do you think, that embracing by the state of the folks in Wisconsin for that brand, and what's being done on your end and the organization's end to sustain that?
Culture's it's big in every organization. And if you don't have a great culture within the company that you're working with, I mean, it can come out in your projects, and it can come out. It doesn't matter if you're a CPA firm and there's bad culture within, and you'll see it at some point rise up, and everybody else can see it. I just look at our ownership. Mark Rose he's a Vilas County guy, and I mean, he still lives in Vilas County, and he's second generation, and his sons and daughter are working in the industry now, so they're third generation, and everybody has that very engaging mindset and personality where we're just curious, and we want to work hard, and we have a lot of fun. As you saw, like when we were at Whitcott, it was just having fun with people, and it's really just a warm and welcoming environment. It doesn't matter if we're working with Calumet County, if we're working with Marathon County, or if we're working with Don, the former CEO of Quick Trip. I mean, it's the same type of style that we have, where it's we don't take ourselves too serious, because we're just sharing beautiful stories and inspiring stories, and hopefully do it well. But we just want everybody to enjoy it and have fun.
So what would you do differently at this point? If there was anything that you would want to do differently in the last minute and a half, 2 minutes we have in this segment?
Okay. For us, it's just constantly evolving. So we went from a broadcast only company to then finding out, okay, is broadcast still as powerful? Do we move into the streaming category? We introduced the podcast. And then now it's like trying to find the waves of, okay, do we do an app? Do we not do an app? And it would be the flexibility. If we could change one thing, it's the flexibility of how quickly we can adjust to the changing dynamics of all the demographics, but at the same time not lose focus on who we are. Because if you look at our audience, we still have a strong broadcast piece, and we have a place for the demographics that are watching us on broadcast, and there's a place in podcast and social, and it's reacting as quickly as possible. And sometimes that's hard to do with a limited staff. And, if we had to change one thing, it would be, grow that social, piece and the support staff to really make us as nimble as we possibly can.
Okay. We've reached the position where we're going to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm Rick Sense, along with Terry Pinch, and our guest today is Josh Ostermann from Discover Mediaworks. Before we get back to the conversation, Josh, I'm going to go ahead and just give our listeners a little bit of information about Score. Score Northeast Wisconsin serves an 18-county area in Northeast Wisconsin, plus the county of Menominee in Michigan. We have over 50 volunteers, each experts in their field, and offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, please visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, please visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And to support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. So, Terry, I'm going to turn the show over to you then.
Okay. We're talking to Josh Ostermann from Discover Mediaworks. Josh, we've talked a little bit about some of the things Discover Mediaworks does, but let's talk about your audience. How much is focused on people in Wisconsin versus people outside of Wisconsin first?
So if we're going to produce content for anybody, whether it's the city of Madison, or it's going to be Minocqua or Calumet County, for instance, or the Fox Valley, they'll come to us with the ideas that they have in mind, and then it's our job to craft that in a way that connects with multiple different audiences. Like I had said, with it might be a streaming platform, might be YouTube, might be a broadcast or a podcast, and our audience in the Midwest is strong. I mean, we're in Chicago. It's our number one audience on YouTube. It's our fourth largest audience in Chicago. But if we break down exactly our viewership, and if we look at different destinations, it's our listenership on the podcast, the majority of it does come from Wisconsin. And that's the wonderful thing about being called Discover Wisconsin, is Wisconsinites are passionate about their state. We are a very proud state. And it was something I always knew growing up, but when I moved out west and I was there almost a decade, I would see a Wisconsin license plate and you would immediately think, oh, I bet you they know somebody that I know. And you'd have conversations. And the weirdest thing, and if you were to have conversations with people, a lot of times it's like, oh, I grew up in Fall Creek and I did this and blah, blah, blah. Or I have cousins in Sheboygan. Do you know this person? It's really kind of fun, to look at that Wisconsin connection and how proud we are. And then you add in, there's types of beer. Like if you have a Spotted Cow and you're outside of the state, you just want to get back to Wisconsin so you can have a Spotted Cow. I don't drink Spotted Cow when I'm here. I missed it so much when I was outside the state. And it's like, there's such a passion in Wisconsin that most of the content that we produce can be shown in the Chicago market, or it could be shown in Eau Claire. And it's not going to differ wildly, because one of the things that I learned having lived out west is just live like a tourist in whatever town you're in, because I'd be living in the mountains and all these people that live there would take advantage of it. And every weekend we'd be going out and doing something that somebody, in the Midwest would give up a week's worth of vacation for. So as we came back to Wisconsin and I had the opportunity to go to Discover Wisconsin, our biggest point is you can educate people in your own communities on what restaurants are there, or what great opportunities for outdoor adventures are right across the street that they might not even think about, because everybody gets into their routines and they just go to their favorite places. So for us, telling the story that connects with somebody that's going to be visiting from Chicago and spending a weekend, or somebody that is, sleeps in their community 7 nights a week, and instead of going to one supper club the same Friday every single week, they might change it up and go to a different place, might try a different pizza spot, might go to High Cliff State Park, which to me is one of the most hidden gem state parks in all of Wisconsin. And you could tell somebody in La Crosse, go check out High Cliff, and they'll appreciate it just as much as somebody who's downtown Appleton.
So just one added comment for you. I lived here for a couple of years, transferred to North Carolina for 4.5 years at a facility where there's people from around the United States. The only people that you knew for sure where they were from were the people from Wisconsin. You could, and not an accent or anything like that. It was, they would tell you, they would talk about the Packers all the time. And when they found out I was in Wisconsin, lived in Wisconsin for a couple of years, asked me why I wasn't a Packers fan. Yep. But they were all really proud of it. And that's something I think your show actually helps with too, is helping increase the pride of people in Wisconsin to understand what all the state has to offer.
Yep.
How does that influence and affect your employees as they're doing the work, knowing that they're representing people in Wisconsin as they send these messages too?
So we all take pride in what we produce, and we've been lucky over the last few years to be Emmy nominated and Emmy winning. We've won Emmys with our other brands, but Discover Wisconsin had only won one prior to 3 years ago, and now we have 5. And a part of that is the way that we're telling the story and the way that our producers can tell the story and be creative. They want to draw that in and try to tell a story the most impactful way possible. And their job is to tell the story to match the vision of wherever we're filming, if whatever it's the destination. And when we sit and we talk with these people during creative meetings and we're trying to build out the storyline, you can see it in their passion when they're telling us about it. And, you know, everybody has farmers markets, but you have to tell us why your farmers market is better than, you know, most. And usually we can get a story out of that. Like when we were in Door County and we were doing a story about the Door County Coastal Byway, and they were talking about a farmers market that's in Bailey's Harbor. And it butts up right against the water, and they have like whitefish spread that you can buy. Not a lot of farmers markets in the state have that. So, you know, it's like they have pride in what they're talking about. And so then that goes right into our production staff and our entire team, because we love Wisconsin and we just want to celebrate it and all the people, the businesses, the destinations. And it's not hard to do once you get out and you start exploring and, you know, get to meet all these people. Because what you had said about people asking you questions and wanting to know all about you because you live in Wisconsin, think about going to all these communities, whether it's a large urban area or a small rural community. They just want to share their knowledge of the area with you. So it's a lot of fun to be able to go and meet these people and learn from them. And our staff loves it. Okay.
We're at the point where we're going to take our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. Thank you for joining us again. We're talking to Josh Ostermann from Discover Mediaworks. And before we get back to Josh, we have an education update to give you. This week we have an interesting offer for you. It's coming from Score North America. But if you go down to our website, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, you'll see right on the front homepage, there is something called the Amazon Seller Success Series. So we've partnered with Amazon to develop a series of webinars to help business people who want to get on Amazon and start selling on Amazon understand how to do it. It's something we get as a question regularly as mentors from people who are looking at doing things, because there's pros and cons to it. You really have to understand it to make sure it's the right thing for you. And this series does a really nice job of helping you understand, first of all, how do you go about doing it? How do you make sure your product gets into the searches? And then how do you use things like distribution and fulfillment? So it's a great opportunity for small business. Again, it's the Amazon Seller Success Series. You can find it on our homepage of score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. So with that, Rick, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Terry. Josh, just a reminder to listeners, we're speaking with Josh Ostermann from Discover Mediaworks. One of the programs under that umbrella is the Discover Wisconsin show. And you've been talking about the show, but could you maybe walk listeners through how you actually get from concept to finished product for the show, the Discover Wisconsin show? Maybe just walk listeners through that process.
Yeah. So when we determine the community or the destination of the business that we're going to be featuring, we'll have a creative kickoff with our team and, either one person or a committee of people from whatever the destination would be. And it'll come up with stories of, okay, we want to focus on silent sports. We want to focus on motorsports or outdoor adventures, maybe a culinary tour, whatever it may be. And it depends. If it's an episode, it could have a mix of all that. If it's one of our digital shorts, which is a streaming video that's a little bit shorter in length, between like 5 and 6 minutes, those are usually, you have about 3 stops, maybe 3 interviews before, it starts to go on too long. And so they just have to try to figure out what it is they want to get out of it. And then our producers take all of that information back and we write kind of an overview or a treatment of what the content will consist of. And then from there, we go back and work with whatever the destination is. And whether once it's approved, then we start logistics. And, for instance, like the projects that we've worked on over the years with Calumet County, first there was when the East Central IPEC had talked about the endless shores of Lake Winnebago. That was a great episode. And that was a partnership that included Calumet County, the Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau, Discover Oshkosh, their name is now, and with Fond du Lac County. And that was a story where all 3 partners had a different viewpoint of what the episode was going to look like. Oshkosh wanted to show the vibrancy along the lakeshore, we're kind of right downtown, and then you could drive basically drive the coast to Fond du Lac. And in Fond du Lac, we got to experience some outdoor adventures and some new boutique places. And then we went to Calumet County. And at the time, the goal of Calumet County was to show, like the quieter side of the lake, where it's you can hit the boat landings and you can go camping and you can slow down and truly enjoy what the lake has to offer and all of the outdoor adventures within Calumet County. So each of the destinations had their own story to tell, and then it was our job for the production crew to weave that together, that connected back to the endless shores of Lake Winnebago and what the overarching theme of the episode was. And then we spend, it can be, sometimes 4, sometimes 8 days going out and filming, especially if you're doing it over different seasons, to put together a full episode. And, it's really a neat process once we get to the post-production stage. This is when, now it becomes really simple, where it's a Vimeo link or it's a link online where you can send it, and then everybody that's been a part of it can watch and give their thumbs up or any recommendations to adjust. But it's still fun when we can get people to come into our studios in Madison and watch it with us for the first time, to actually see the excitement in their face. And I know once the episodes and some of the videos are completed, it is a really fun process for us to go out and do like premiere parties. And we had slowed down during COVID on the premiere parties. But if you imagine if a community does, if they do one of these episodes, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, and they're proud and they want to share that with the people that are major contributors for them. And so then we will go and, for instance, in Sauk County, it was at the Al Ringling Theater, really cool venue downtown Baraboo. And we watched the hidden gems of Sauk County, and the theater was full. And it was all the people that were a part of it. It was the people that, helped, any of the funding that went into it, the key decision makers. And, it was just a really, neat opportunity to interact and watch people's reaction for the first time seeing it. And so that, the process depends on what it is if it's a short, it's a shorter process. If it's an episode, it's a little bit of a longer process. But regardless, it's a lot of fun to be able to talk to people and get their ideas. And then when they're telling us their ideas of what makes their community special and their destination special, and then they get to see that told on video and they see it for the first time, it's a really cool experience.
Well, I had the good fortune recently in Berlin, you and I and some other folks from production from Discover MediaWorks were filming the International Biathlon event that was taking place there. It was the first of its kind event, and so there's a lot of excitement built up around there already.
Yep.
And we've also worked on other projects, and I guess that gets me to thinking. There's Discover Wisconsin, but then there's this new product out there. It's relatively newer. I shouldn't call it new anymore, but called Uniquely Wisconsin. And, we've partnered, and Calumet County has partnered with you already on this. But could you walk listeners through what Uniquely Wisconsin is, first of all, and what is an interesting story that you can walk listeners through that shows what you're trying to accomplish with that show?
So for Uniquely Wisconsin, that really was born out of COVID, and our podcast was born out of COVID. So there was a lot of changes that we saw, as an organization about how people's, minds had shifted and their spending habits had shifted. And so we had to react, in a certain way. But I think once the tourism industry, when COVID hit, started to slow down, you started to really see some, like heartwarming and emotional stories coming from people all over the state. And one of the county executives in this state, and it was the county executive at Washington County, we had talked to him about potentially doing something with Discover Wisconsin. And he came back and he's like, well, we should really be looking at, not necessarily, just focusing on tourism, which is what Discover Wisconsin's been doing, for 3 decades. Let's take a look at the people that are behind those stories. And so then as we took that in and worked with the counties association on what that meant, what has come from that is one of our strongest brands, and we consider Uniquely Wisconsin a sister brand to Discover Wisconsin. The only difference is, like, we don't have a host. So people might remember when Mariah was our host, or, the former Secretary of Tourism, Stephanie Klett, was our host for nearly 20 years. And there was Rick Rose, and, currently we have Andrea Belke and, Eric Paulson and some others. And it's a very host-driven show, but we don't want the host to outshine any of the destinations. So with Uniquely Wisconsin, one of the things that was going to help make this stand out and make it more emotional and connect is if we're going to tell the stories first person from whoever the story is about, they're going to guide us through on why we should care and why we should love what they're doing. And a lot of times, like when we're working with counties, and they're coming up with all these different things, it's a lot of tell the story that can normally not be told. And that's been the best part about it. And what that means is, like, I always tell this as an example because this is one of my favorites. In one of our first episodes we released in Uniquely Wisconsin, we had worked with Sauk County, and they came to us and said, okay, let's feature Ishnala Supper Club because it's always voted the number 1 supper club in the state of Wisconsin. Now, if you're voted the number 1 supper club in the state of Wisconsin, that means you're the number 1 supper club. Now, I know that there's plenty of people in Calumet County that will disagree with me because it's the supper club capital of the Midwest. Regardless, we had shown Ishnala many times on Discover Wisconsin, but all we would show is the beauty that it's there at the base of Mirror Lake, and you can sit outside, and they got the walking trails, and you sit there and you wait for your drinks and all that. What we had never shown was behind the scenes. We never showed the history, and like Bob Prosser puts on one heck of a show, and what happens when he's ready to hang it up, and we want to know, like, what's the family dynamic, what's the people behind the scenes, the chef, the people that come back year after year, because he's not open 12 months a year. So what's really neat to see is all these people come back year after year after year, so they don't have an issue with employment. And so I think that was something that Sauk County wanted to take a look at, is like, what are they doing so well there to form a culture that we can then share with everybody else in the county business wise. And so when we showed that story, we got to see that his son is right there in the wings with him, and that, if at some point, if he ever does step away, it's going to be in good hands and it's just going to keep rolling. And we got to experience what the chef goes through when he's making 800 to 900 plates a night in the summertime. And it was a great look at what sets like that company apart. And then we also got to highlight the fact that it's a supper club and it's beautiful, and that's what makes Wisconsin so iconic. And then with you guys, I thought it was a really neat story when you're taking a look, the piece that we did with the Wolf and Fox Winery, because you're taking an old homestead that, a lot of times these homesteads across the state and dairy farms, and we've been having to do stories about this, they've reached the end of their life cycle. And then what do you do with that? Do you just turn it over and you build houses on it? Or do you, just let it go and then somebody buys it for hunting land or whatever? But there's people that take it and it all of a sudden they pump in these new ideas and this vision for the future. And now they have a winery, like a homegrown winery. And like, how did it start from being just a regular place in New Holstein, and you see like the farmlands, and then all of a sudden it's this beautiful new winery? And what made them take that risk to start this business? And it's really neat. And I love the story about the Terra Verde, where it's like, how do you mix in the scoops and Terra Verde, and you got people coming from different parts of the world and choosing to live there and then choosing to open their business. Those are the type of stories we want to hear. The other one, we just went back and filmed at Aaron's, but the story of how the Nordic Center came to Brilliant and why they did what they did was really just an impactful story that, is interesting for viewers to watch, but it's also an educational piece for all these other CEOs or entrepreneurs to learn and say, wow, this is great. So the way that we look at it is we want to be able to check a box with Uniquely Wisconsin that touches on tourism, because that's our audience, because Uniquely Wisconsin is shared across the Discover Wisconsin platforms. But then we also want it to be an educational tool that gives a roadmap of people that took the chance to do it for economic development and for all these different communities and municipalities to see, like if they're ever doubting, does a music studio work in an old barn in Monroe County? You bet it does. So it might work in Lincoln County too. So that's the biggest piece for us that's the most impactful on Uniquely Wisconsin, is to hear all of these heartwarming and sometimes very emotional stories, but to then see it connect differently than what our Discover Wisconsin audience is used to. And we did not know what we were doing, I'll be honest, in season 1. We had the idea, we had the framework of what we thought it could be, but then as we started getting into these stories, and that's why I love everybody that did season 1 with us, and there was 8 different counties that participated, and they just came up with these really awesome stories, but set the path on how these stories can be successful. So then season 2 and season 3, and now we're going into season 4, have really been able to then take that and then find the best way forward. And, season 1, we were nominated and won an Emmy. And so we were really excited about that. In season 2, we were nominated and won an Emmy last November. And now season 3, we need to start sending in the nominations for season 3. So we'll see if we can make it 3 years in a row, and we're going to see if Calumet County can win an Emmy for one of their 3 stories, because I think each one of them meets criteria of being recognized in award season, just because of the way that the stories were told. And you guys did such a great job of selecting who the interviewees would be. And I love the collaboration between when you guys bring us a story, and then we can turn around and we can do some homework and try to figure out, okay, this person would be great. And so then once we kind of circle in on what story is going to work the best, then we challenge the destinations again in the counties to say, okay, who do you think has the most passion? Who do you think can speak highly, at a very high level, but draw people back to the destination? And I think what you guys did was awesome. And I would suggest that everybody goes out to the Discover Wisconsin YouTube page and then finds our Uniquely Wisconsin playlist. We have nearly 50 videos now, and each one of those are just so amazing. And, some might be very history based. Some might be tourism, heartwarming. The one that we did on Washington County, where it was the 9/11 memorial that they opened up in Kewaskum. Like, to me, that's a story that was just, it was very heartwarming to see it. And some of the video that was captured was very emotional. And our producer, who you've worked with, walked in and said, I think this is like too heavy. And I was like, okay, let's watch it. And so then we watched it, and it hit home perfectly. It captured the emotions of that day. It captured the heartwarming, community feel and Americana that everybody had right after, and then trying to make that memorial. And it was kind of fun for me to say, well, how old were you at that time? And she said she was 3. So, and you think, how is it for all of our people downstairs? I go back to your question. There's a lot of things that all of us on this show have experienced in our life, and they might not know, what we're talking about, but then they get to go out and experience it for themselves. And the way that she told that story without really knowing the full impact emotionally of that day, she captured it perfectly. And it's one of my favorite videos that we've done. Specifically speaking, that she didn't really know how to capture it, and she captured it in a way that I don't think anybody else could have done.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We are ready to go to our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk or Score on WHBY. I'll be right back to wrap up after these messages. I would like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present the show without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in your life or your business, Johnson Financial Group works with you to understand your goals, matching the right banking and wealth services to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program and the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper contains relevant and useful information about the business community in this region. We'd also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. With that, Rick, we'll turn it over to you to wrap everything up.
All right. Thanks, Terry. Josh, could you give listeners an opportunity to find out how they could learn more about Discover Mediaworks and everything that you guys are doing?
Yep. So our website is discoverwisconsin.com. That's to really find all of our blogs and our videos and different contests that go on throughout the state of Wisconsin. Discovermediaworks.com is our overall website. But as these videos that we're talking about, Uniquely Wisconsin and Discover, if you go to our YouTube channel and just type in Discover Wisconsin, will pop up. But it's an at Discover WI. And so that's the best way to do it. We have our Facebook page and Instagram handles of Discover Wisconsin.
And you also have a podcast, correct? Could you give a little bit of information on that before we wrap up here?
So we have had the Cabin Podcast. It is now 5 years old. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary. Well over 1 million downloads. So we're pretty excited that the audience is liking the direction that we take and all the things we talk about in Wisconsin. It's always fun. But we just went through a cabin remodel. And so then we brought in another host of Andrea Belke, who's been our TV host for a long time. And then we have, Megan, who's on our social media team, but brings a younger audience, younger voice to the podcast as well. And you'll hear me on there talk about, different food related topics across the state of Wisconsin because I do like to travel and I do like to eat, but the cabin is a fun listen that comes out every Tuesday.
And you talked about food. What other things do you guys talk about that maybe don't hit the regular shows that you produce?
Well, the best part about the podcast is that it's really just about the topic, and it's not funded by any means, so that we get to go and talk about our favorite things. So if we talk, what's our favorite fall hikes in Wisconsin or summer hikes in Wisconsin or favorite places to go, then we'll pinpoint, I like going here and here and here. We'll talk about, hidden gem state parks for one, like if we do, High Cliff State Park, and might say Lake Higanza State Park is a quiet one in the Madison market that nobody, goes to as often. It's really just topics of whatever we feel is the fit at that moment. So we've had, best hot dish or casserole dishes in, once the weather gets colder, and we talk about, like Wisconsin-esque products. It goes on and on and on.
In the last minute we have here, Josh, I just have to ask you, put you on the spot just to really get you in trouble with 5.5 million people.
Yeah.
What is the best spot in the state of Wisconsin from your perspective?
I wouldn't say that there's a number one, but what I will say is each of the areas of the state offer just immense beauty on their own, and then the people and the businesses that are there. And I know I'm not avoiding the question, but I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and I love once you pass Highway 8 and you start hitting all the different restaurants and the mom and pop places and all the lakes and the woods, I think it's great. Being along the Lake Michigan shoreline, whether you're going from Two Rivers or Algoma down to Sheboygan and to Milwaukee, it's just it's a totally different experience that you're going to feel driving the Great River Road. And you have 250 miles and 33 communities, covers 8 states. It's beautiful. I went to school in Eau Claire, and I love that part of the state. There isn't a portion of this state that I don't love, and they all offer their own special moments, and you have to go out and explore.
And Josh, we think you might have a career in politics in front of you as well. So we'd like to thank you very much for being on the show. It's a great discussion, and we really appreciate you stepping in and talking to us. So to our listeners, thank you very much, and you can catch us again next week. Goodbye.